Ben Simmons was supposed to be the next big thing in the NBA. The first overall pick in the 2016 draft, he was expected to become a superstar and lead the Philadelphia 76ers to championship glory. But things haven't gone exactly as planned. In fact, things are starting to look pretty bleak for Simmons. From his struggles on the court to his off-court issues, there are a lot of reasons why things aren't looking good for him right now. In this video, we'll be taking a closer look at Simmons' current situation, exploring the factors that are contributing to his struggles, and asking the tough questions about whether he has what it takes to turn things around. So whether you're a fan of Ben Simmons or just a fan of the NBA in general, you won't want to miss this in-depth analysis of why things aren't looking good for one of the league's most promising young stars. Adrian Wojnarowski wrote a tweet in February of last year, around that time, that caused the NBA community to go crazy. James Harden was sent to the 76ers by the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Ben Simmons. There are spectacular tweets on Twitter, such as, "The 76ers' greatest worry is that Ben Simmons will be a phenomenal player in Brooklyn. Nets secured the deal. Nets easily prevailed in this deal. Well, even if I'm not an executive, Nets easily won this deal. Best wishes, Brooklyn." About a year later, well, something occurs. Hey, the Nets and Heat are playing in a closely contested matchup right now. The Nets are only up by 1 point as of roughly halfway through the fourth quarter. Now that Kyrie and Durant have been moved, Simmons should have his chance to shine, right? He's not on the ground at least. As you can see, Michael Bridges, Royce O'Neal, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, and Spencer Dinwiddie are all represented. So I assume he may be on the bench, but that was not the case. Simmons isn't present either as I scanned the guys' faces on the bench. I made sure everything was correct and looked again, but I still couldn't locate him. Where the hell is Ben Simmons, I wondered. Was he removed from the game or is he hurt? I instantly checked online and each of those inquiries had negative answers. I then noticed him as the camera flashed. Ben Simmons was here, in the corner, not on the floor. Not on the bench, but away from the team in the corner in a close 89-90 game between the Nets and the Heat. There were no other quote-unquote all-stars on the team. Ben Simmons' situation isn't looking good, ladies and gents. Ben Simmons is going to be out of the league very soon, so I was searching the internet for different NBA content to write. I came across that headline. That is actually what motivated me to look into this because, to be honest, I had high hopes for Ben Simmons coming into the season after he had finished recovering from injuries. It seems like yesterday when he was an all-star, competing like an all-NBA player, receiving plaudits from NBA greats like Dwayne Wade, who said this, he's on a whole new team, has a fresh new starting from what occurred the year previous in Philadelphia. The NBA is in Gray's hands since they are the league's future. Guys, we're being jerks. Ben Simmons went from possibly being one of the future faces of the NBA to becoming a bench player. The problem is that he's a bench player on a team without any other all-stars. But for Pete's sake, he isn't old and washed since he's just 26 years old. He's just about to reach his peak. Such a bizarre twist of fate. If you assumed I was just referring to the Miami game, you were mistaken. Hey, the trade deadline was on February 9th and Simmons hasn't made a single start in the games since that busy day. He has only played once since then and has never tallied 10 points or 10 rebounds. In a recent post-game interview, Nets coach Jimmy Vaughn was questioned about how to deploy Ben Simmons now that he's not on the court alongside two of the most explosive scorers in basketball history. He gave a long reply but stated, "It's going to take some effort. We'll have to figure it out. Problems lie ahead." And that was about it. The new AI program ChatGPT would probably simply translate this as, "I have a lousy basketball player on my squad." These men, how in the world did Ben Simmons' situation come to this point? Look at this story from Bleacher Report, for example. This is a legitimate piece from last year that shows what possible deals for the top selection would have looked like. Due to a wage restrictions and team compatibility, most of these deals weren't given much thought, but in actuality, no one would have laughed at any of them. Jamal Murray plays for the Nuggets, Dame Time for the Portland, Pascal Siakam for the Raptors, Conley and Clarkson for the Jazz. Almost half of the rotation for the Wizards, Kuzma, KCP, Kispert, and Denny Avdija. And now, as I mentioned earlier, there are reports that Ben will soon leave the league. The 76ers must be thrilled that they were able to acquire James Harden in exchange for Ben Simmons because despite being passed over for this year's All-Star game, Harden is averaging close to 21-11 and 6 points on some of the most efficient shooting of his career, while Simmons appears to have no idea where his basketball career is going. Let me reiterate what I just said. How in the world did Ben Simmons' situation come to this point? Because if you think about it, it boils down to simply two things. Kobe Bryant made the first point years ago: you've got to obtain a job because if not, you'll regret it. How insightful the Mamba's remarks were as it turned out. Look at this chart I grabbed from a Basketball Reference to see how Ben Simmons' numbers stack up. Ben Simmons never developed an NBA shot that he could take in games. This is a visual representation of each shot Simmons has made so far this year. As you can see, 99% of his shots are taken inside around 10 feet of the hoop, not only in the paint. Some of you may be thinking that's how a shot chart for a non-shooter like Simmons should seem. But well, do you see this graph here? This is the graph of a player that is identical to Ben Simmons in position, but who does not shoot three-pointers. Teams actively prepare their games so that this guy can shoot threes. And if you're curious about who this image belongs to, it's Draymond Green, who despite being a below-average shooter, continues to attempt and convert outside jumpers. Even so, I'll go a step further. Even though Draymond is a lesser shooter than the person whose shot chart is this, he still practices his jump shot and uses it in competitions. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the owner of this shot chart, in case you were wondering. The reality is that if you want to stay in the NBA today, you need to be a danger from at least 10 feet away from the basket. It's turned into a shooter's league, and Ben is paying the price for his poor shooting skills and lack of tries. I'm not suggesting that he has to develop a half-court shooting style like Steph Curry or Damian Lillard, but at 6 foot 10 inches, a reliable mid-range jumper is essential, as Kobe said. Otherwise, he would regret it, and it seems like that is precisely what is happening right now. Ben's issue is divided into two parts. Nevertheless, the second part may perhaps be more problematic. While it's not shown in the box score, this is it. Ben Simmons' lack of competitiveness in pivotal games was discussed by a coach in a 2016 article, who said the following: "It has raised issues about his character on and off the court, according to those who know him well. He requires everything to revolve around him, and is often closed-minded to coaching or guidance." This little passage appears to have hit the nail on the head. As Simmons is the only star on the Brooklyn Nets, it is more clear that he lacks the dog mentality that is preventing him from being productive when he is on the floor. Things aren't looking good for the 2016 top pick. If he couldn't look like a star while Kyrie and Durant were on the team, and if he doesn't seem like even a quarter of a star when the team's two best players are Mikal Bridges and Spencer Dinwiddie. On the other hand, I do hope Simmons takes the criticism from the media and becomes so enraged that he locks himself in a gym and fires a ridiculous number of jump shots every day. Because he can, I hope he works on perfecting even a passable shot that he can utilize in competitions. Take Blake Griffin as an example. He lost his athleticism, after which he developed into a respectable shooter. Examine Markelle Fultz. After having his shooting skills essentially taken by Space Jam aliens, he is now making a comeback shooting season. So let's go back to Simmons. I'm hoping if he works on his shot, because even if he improves his three-point shooting to about 30%, it won't be enough to win a championship. But if he becomes a below-average shooter, he could be eligible for the Most Improved Player award. Ben Simmons' situation isn't looking good, unless he either learns to shoot or adopts a dog mindset. Now that you've heard our take on why things aren't looking good for Ben Simmons, we want to hear from you. Do you think Simmons can turn things around and become the superstar he was once touted to be? Or do you think his struggles are indicative of deeper issues that will prevent him from reaching his full potential? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming NBA content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.